Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
I was an apprentice supercomputer scientist for 45 years. After investing 45 years in the craft of supercomputing, I had the command of materials that I needed to deliver my supercomputer lectures in prose and poetry rather than on blackboards and PowerPoints. After nearly half a century of supercomputing, I knew one or two things about supercomputers that nobody else knew. That new knowledge that I alone had was how to solve the toughest problems arising in physics and how to solve them at once. My mathematical maturity grew from the algebraic representation of the second law of motion of physics that was written as F equals ma, or force equals mass times acceleration. That iconic formula, F equals ma, is the most important formula in mathematics, science, and engineering. I learned that formula, F equals ma, back in June 1970, and I learned it in the 8th grade of Christ the King College, Onitsha, East Central State, Nigeria. Fast forward a dozen years, I had taken as my second home half a dozen mathematics and physics departments that were across the United States. My second home was mathematics and physics departments from Corvallis, Oregon, to Washington, District of Columbia, to College Park, Maryland. For my first 16 years in the United States, I made those departments, those mathematics and physics departments, my second home. After 16 years in mathematics and physics departments, I had grown intellectually to become a research computational mathematician and to become a research computational physicist. That intellectual maturity as a research mathematician and as a research physicist was what enabled me to discover 36 critical errors in the advanced textbooks in the mathematical physics that governs the flow of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas that flows a mile deep inside production oil fields. I corrected those 36 critical mathematical errors by inventing 36 partial derivative terms that ensured that F equals ma and that ensured that the equality holds within a system of 9 new partial differential equations that I invented and that encoded the second law of motion of physics and that encoded that law for 3-dimensional 3-phase flows within porous media such as flow of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas across the Oloibiri oil field of Bayelsa State of southeastern Nigeria. That was the first oil field that was discovered in West Africa back in 1956. Those 36 partial derivative terms encoded the 36 temporal and spatial components of the inertial forces in the 3 phases of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas that were flowing along the temporal and the 3 spatial directions of my new 9 partial differential equations of modern calculus. I continued across my ensemble of 64 binary thousand tightly coupled commodity off-the-shelf processors that shared nothing with each other. And I continued and I invented my new 9 partial differential equations. I discretized the latter from its formulation as a differential problem of modern calculus to the extreme scaled problem in modern algebra. I did so to enable me to more accurately encode the invisible subterranean motion of water that is pumped into water injection wells and pumped because water is cheaper than oil and natural gas and is therefore used to push oil and natural gas towards production wells. For me, the answer to the grand challenge problem of mathematics and supercomputing demanded my 16-year-long journey onward of June 20, 1974, from Corvallis, Oregon, United States, through Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States, to receiving the top prize in supercomputing from Silicon Valley, California. A research pure mathematician is researching a new proof of a deep and abstract theorem. I sojourned to an unknown world of technology. In that sojourn, I used 16 supercomputer hopefuls as my guideposts along the new pathways to the never-before-seen global network of processors that is a new internet, and that is a new supercomputer, and that is a new computer. A research applied mathematician is seeking a new and better mathematical description, such as a system of coupled nonlinear, time-dependent, and state-of-the-art partial differential equations that governs an initial boundary value problem of modern calculus. A research computational mathematician is seeking a faster computational model that explains or predicts a phenomenon that is otherwise impossible to explain or predict. In the late 1970s and early 80s, I was a research computational mathematician that lived in room 877 of Meridian Hill Hall at 2601 16th Street, that was at the corner of 16th Street and Euclid Street of Adams Morgan neighborhood of Northwest Washington, D.C. On a Friday evening, I might have dinner with my future wife, Dale. Our favorite place was an Ethiopian restaurant that was a short walk down 18th Street from Columbia Road in the Adams Morgan neighborhood. My other favorite places are the small cafes along T and U streets and the Meridian Hill Park Drum Circle. In the late 1970s and early 80s, I was most likely to be seen in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., jogging across the Smithsonian's National Zoo of Washington, D.C. at 6 a.m. in the mornings. I also walked or jogged across the Adams Morgan neighborhood or across the DuPont Circle neighborhood or across the Foggy Bottom neighborhood or across Rock Creek Park. The 12-mile-long Rock Creek Park extends from the Potomac River to the border of Maryland. Foggy Bottom is named after the fog that clings to the neighborhood in the morning. Foggy Bottom is a late 18th century neighborhood and is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. The DuPont Circle has a famous traffic circle and a water fountain at its center. For me, The DuPont circle, drum circle, and its array of late afternoon drummers and dancers was like a church. Fast forward to the late 1990s, and from the drum circles of Washington, D.C., to West African drummers in Baltimore, Maryland. My wife, Dale, and I took lessons on African dance and drum and rhythm, and from a charismatic griot and choreographer named Kibibi Ajanko. Kibibi Ajanko was the founding mother of the Sankofa Dance Theater of Baltimore, Maryland. From October 1978 to May 1981, I lived a short walk from the Kilimanjaro restaurant and nightclub that was started in 1982. Kilimanjaro restaurant and nightclub was throbbing with live African music and reggae. Kilimanjaro restaurant and nightclub was in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of Washington, D.C. In the early 1980s, I lived at 1915 East-West Highway, apartment 303, Silver Spring, Maryland. And I walked the short distance to the railway subway station called Metro Station. That underground railway station was at the boundary between Silver Spring, Maryland and Washington, District of Columbia. On weekdays, I took the Washington, D.C. Rapid Transit System to Foggy Bottom Station that is west of the White House and in downtown Washington. Foggy Bottom was a very short walk to the computer center where I programmed fast computers and used them to solve the most computation-intensive initial boundary value problems of modern calculus that was the mathematical foundation of computational fluid dynamics.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.